And our presenter today is Dr. Stephan Köppe. Stephan is Assistant Professor at University College Dublin and a Fellow at the Geary Institute for Public Policy. Stephan's research is investigating the nexus of public and private welfare, including both the political economy of welfare market creation and analyses of inequalities resulting of these reforms. This includes policy studies on private pension, private schools, provision of long-term care, or housing wealth. More recently, his research also included labor market reforms, leave policies, and non-profit organizations. And today, Stephan will be presenting his work on family leave and what unions can do about it, lessons from recent reforms in Ireland. So I'm very much looking forward to this, Stephan. I'll give you about 30 minutes to speak, and then we will have a question and answer session afterwards, assuming that's suitable. So, Stephan, I will leave it with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your kind introduction. And I still see kind of maybe not so many people have logged in, so I will make a very slow start. For everyone who's kind of logged in now. You will see slides in a second, but first of all, thank you for your invitation, because I think it is really crucial to have that debate with union policymakers, because I think here is the heart of where unions can really make a difference. And the paper I'm going to present is of more kind of a technical paper or an evaluation of the paternity leave scheme in Ireland. But I think it has strong implications for what unions can actually do on the ground with regards to occupational benefits, but also their role in kind of advocating for changes in statutory schemes. And I think in this dual role of unions, both as a provider of occupational benefits and an advocacy group or kind of organization, kind of course, across the union sector for changes in welfare policies. In this dual role, I think they can really make a difference. And I think I have a few lessons that really go beyond the pure academic papers. And I would be really looking forward to that debate. What can we actually be done about it? Since we are not in person, of course, it would be great to be in person. And we already had this technical difficulties to get it started today with the Zoom. So, but without further ado, I kind of share now my slides, and you should be able to hopefully see everything. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I want to what's the background of the entire research? So first of all, Ireland is a liberal welfare state, and it was very late in introducing any kind of shared or paternity leave. Yes, maternity benefit is one of the longest in Europe, and it had been around on the statute books for a long time. I actually don't know when it was introduced in Ireland. But while a lot of other countries have introduced some kind of shared parental leave or paternity leave, Ireland didn't have that on the statutes books until 2016, and that was really latecomer. So and that's when I started this research, and I wanted to know what is actually going on. What is the actual kind of, how does the scheme operate? How does it compare to the EU? How many fathers actually take the leave? Is it kind of, fully embraced by the fathers in Ireland? And then also I wanted to know who is actually taking the leave. Is it, across this kind of socio-demographic strata, or is it just specific targeted at specific fathers that take the leave? And then kind of the last question I want to answer today, what can unions do about it? How can they actually kind of shape the family policy development in Ireland, and maybe even on the EU level, but that would be kind of something for the discussion. So the kind of research that I'm presenting here, the more technical part, is published in this journal article, Ireland's Paternity Leave, Sluggish Benefit Take-Up and Occupational Inequalities. And the title already gives away what I'm going to present. And you can access the paper. It's open access, and happy to read, invite you to read the more detailed analysis there. For today, I want to contextualize this paper with the union movement. So there was strong union support for maternity leave in the 1970s. This year is from a union poster from the UK, and I think there were kind of similar debates here in Ireland. So it was about not just and it was the strong feminist movement, early feminist movements of the 1970s. Here it was, as you can see on this poster, it was not just about pay, it was also about job security. Were women able to return to work after they gave birth? And we know that there was a marriage ban here in Ireland. This was really kind of the novel way to kind of having working mothers. And that, of course, needed social protection. And here it somehow stopped. Okay, so it was really kind of extending maternity leave, providing job security, returning to the job after having a period of leave. And there were debates. Also kind of in the kind of Anglo-Saxon world that it should be extended, but it never really took off. It was in this tradition of a more liberal welfare state. Well, it is a minimum social security provision on a flat rate, wasn't very generous, and it was never really extended to fathers or to have any way kind of a shared parenting role, also kind of challenging the traditional male breadwinner model in any way. And that's at least where kind of it stopped in Ireland, but also in the UK and in other liberal welfare states. However, since the 2010s, we kind of have a renewed focus in liberal welfare states. And that, as I already said, this was very late compared to what the Scandinavian countries did, and also actually continental Europe was much earlier in kind of expanding these schemes to fathers and having shared parental roles. Here, this is now, I just took nice posters that I could find online. Apparently there are a lot from Australian unions, but that's at least what I could see now, new campaigns. So here it's extending paid parental leave. Here they argue actually for increasing the statutory payment. It's not about only occupational benefits, but here unions take a state and they want to extend paid parental leave. Of course, here with a picture of kind of a woman having a little extended leave period. You also see that then in particular, maybe context, that's kind of the context I experience as kind of academic. Do you apply for a sabbatical leave or parental leave? And there could be kind of, what are the career prospects? Of course, sabbatical leave is kind of regarded as the good leave because you produce research. And do you not take the parental leave because that would probably damage your promotion application because it is a period out of work. So, and there are at least anecdotally, I know here, at least in the academic sector, well, take your leave out of term time. And that's kind of one anecdote I heard a lot to discourage fathers from taking leave when they actually might be more beneficial. Of course, during term time when we have to teach, then it's of course more beneficial. And this is just one example from one sector. It probably doesn't transfer that much to other sectors. But we also see that here in Ireland, the Irish Congress for Trade Unions, here it's kind of a press release. They welcome any extensions of parents' leave, but still challenge that the payment rates are not generous enough and should be kind of increased. And I will talk about this, why this is actually relevant to increase the payment rates. So this is kind of the background, and now I delve into the paper and then come back to the more general points I want to make. So the paper now is only focusing on paternity leave. So that's very short leave fathers can take after the immediate birth of their child. In the context of Ireland, it is the 2 weeks. I will talk about the details in a second. So, for instance, this excludes father quotas in parental leave schemes. But that is also now around in Ireland, and again, I will talk more about this in the concluding sections. So, what do we know now about Europe? Okay, so that's the first question I want to answer. As I said, Sweden were the front runners. This is a poster how they advertised to take more paternity leave in the 1980s, early 1980s. The poster shows a famous wrestler from Sweden at that time, and of course, changing the caring roles. It is, okay, even the really, tough wrestler can take care of their child, and it is encouraged by the authorities. Remember the first poster I showed from Ireland? It was quite of a different marketing campaign, but that was kind of really challenging, kind of ingrained caring roles and this male breadwinner model through this campaign, and that kind of set off a lot of reforms, not just in Scandinavia but also in continental Europe, and Ireland was quite late in this. So in 2016, it was introduced. It offers 2 weeks of leave. There's some flexibility when to take it within the first half year after the birth of the child. But it's a contribution-based scheme. So you need to have at least about 1 year of contributions. There's a little bit kind of different eligibility criteria for self-employed, but that's not that relevant here. About 1 year of contributions, and then you're eligible for the 2 weeks. It is a flat rate. The flat rate is matched to the maternity leave benefit, and it replaces around 35% of net wages. So relatively low. However, there are occupational top-ups, and that's also where unions come into play. So public employees have a 100% wage top-up, and then private employees, about 40% of companies offer some wage top-up, also mostly around 100% of wage. So from an income perspective, for public employees, there's no penalty on kind of taking the leave. You wouldn't see it on your salary, and in the private sector, it's about kind of 40% of employees would have access to these. But how does it now compare to the EU? When we look at the EU level, by 2016, 70% of EU 20 countries have offered some paid leave. That even kind of underscores how late Ireland was in introducing any paid leave for fathers. Mostly, they're also relatively generous. They rather have the statutory replacement rate at 80 to 100% of salary. So the 35% statutory replacement rate in Ireland is extremely low. There is, if there was no maternity leave, then actually 96% of the countries had at least some paid parental leave. And also, they in the end, when we combine this, we have had about kind of 85% of countries had either dedicated paternity leave or some parental leave. At this stage, Ireland had none of these. And then when it was introduced, you can also see here, I mean, are these 2 weeks now very generous, or just does it fall into the median within Europe? And it just is a catch up to the median in Europe. So we see here the average days that are offered is 12.3 days. The median is at 14 days. And yes, there are some countries that kind of offer less and some countries more, but that's kind of, 70% of the countries offer 14 days. So it's just Ireland made a big leap to catch up with European counterparts. And beforehand, I mean, Irish fathers could either take annual leave or force majeure, and nothing else was available to them. What happened in the meantime? I now have only data up to 2019. So now all EU countries have either paternity or parental leave. So it was this catch up in there are a lot of countries were actually kind of preempting the EU work-life directive. And they also offered much more generous paid leave schemes. When we now kind of look at the days of the duration, we see not much change either by 2019. And we also kind of, hope you can see my mouse now, Spain is now an outlier. They really kind of pushed this paid paternity leave further to 56 days. And I think they even have increased it in the last round of reforms and extended it even more. So not much change since 2019. So where does it leave us? Ireland continues to align to the medium. It is around the average and not particularly generous on the pay side. So this is kind of the European context. And now I want to delve into what actually happened in Ireland. So how many fathers took the leave? The department in there, when they've published the press releases, when it was launched, actually stated they estimate about 30 to 40,000 claimants per annum. When you do the calculations on the current, birth at that, around that time, because the birth rate has declined in the intervening period, we could kind of estimate that about 46 to 61% among all fathers would take the leave. That's kind of when you do it in kind of a percentage rate take up. So the question is now, can we see that take up? In the paper, it is a little bit more technical that I kind of highlight how you can calculate different rates and that it is actually quite challenging to calculate these rates. The main message you should kind of, remember now is there is a very easy way to calculate take-up. You just take all the paternity benefit claimants that's published by the Department of Social Protection, and you see how many births were in a given year or in a given quarter, and you just take how many claimants do we have per birth. That gives you kind of a very crude kind of estimate how many fathers take leave. Of course, and that's kind of where now this academic paper has a more kind of detailed analysis of, well, you can adjust for the employment rate, because of course, if it's a contribution-based benefit, not all fathers have sufficient entitlement. You can look at the full eligibility rate, and the CSO has published it for 2 years, where you actually have the historical contribution kind of taken into account, and you can use administrative data to kind of have a more exact and accurate measure of take-up. So that's kind of at least the kind of side note. But you should remember now, look at the solid black line. That's the crude rate I have mentioned earlier. Super easy to calculate. It's all publicly available. You can do it yourself. What we see here is from about kind of slightly over 30%, it has increased over the course, and this is quarterly data, and it has increased over time. And then we look at the last quarter of 2019, before COVID hit, we see, well, it just reached about the 50% mark, and that's kind of the lower end of the government target. Then we can kind of see also, if we have control for the kind of the dotted line, we control for employment, we come closer to the eligibility rate that's kind of calculated by the department. And there we see it's kind of somewhere between 55%, 60% of kind of fathers that are actually eligible to claim the benefit would take it. Again, the target that was defined by the department is based on the solid black line. Okay, so this is always a reference, kind of at least target that or benchmark that I can use when the policy was kind of launched. And then we also see a kind of strong COVID effect. And yes, there's newer data available. I just haven't had the time to analyze now the full COVID effect and how it has potentially bounced back. So just to conclude on the take-up, we see rather modest take-up. In comparison, UK has a similar scheme, also 2 weeks, also a flat rate benefit. Take-up is around 75%, some estimates even higher. Other countries report for the short paternity leave take-up of 2 weeks, where we have it, certainly in the region of around 80%, some a little bit maybe around 60, but not the 50% mark in Ireland. So we have rather low take-up. So can we now find some sociodemographic factors contributing to the rather low take-up? First of all, there could be a seasonal effect. Okay, so fathers take it when it suits them. So we know that from parental leave, fathers would take it during the elk hunt season in Sweden. Okay, so however, for Ireland, I don't see any seasonal pattern. It's just kind of, for me, it's randomly distributed. For the self-employed, we have some data, and I show you that in the kind of more, again, technical multivariate analysis I also have done. They seem to be, it's less generous for them because they don't get any occupational top-up. They are eligible to the benefit, but I think there is a lot of things happening for the self-employed that we have a rather low take-up overall, partly because there's relatively high share of self-employed in the Irish economy. Then we have the occupational inequalities. As I said, in the private sector, not all fathers have access to the 100% wage top-up, and that also can drive a lot of the inequalities, and I will show you some data to confirm that, or at least give a hunch for that. Then also age plays a role. This is also just administrative data, and I know the age of the claimants, and I know the age of the fathers according to the CSO data. And we see we have a bulk of fathers in their kind of 30s and late 30s, basically in their 30s. And we see a higher take-up. Then we see kind of older fathers. They don't adopt to the new roles of new shared caring roles, so it's probably more kind of traditional values of childcare. And then we have the younger fathers that are probably not eligible to claim the benefit because they don't have acquired sufficient social insurance contributions. So that's kind of what we can draw from the administrative data that's available. And then it's very hard to measure that in any kind of quantitative survey because the time period is very short. So how do you capture these fathers if they only take the benefit for 2 weeks? If you survey people over, 52 weeks of the year, the chance to capture someone on parental leave is, 2 out of 52 weeks, so very low chance compared to maternity benefit claimants that take the leave for 6 months. However, still in the labor force survey, we can find these people, and we can even do some kind of statistical analysis because we have a very large sample. And there's a particular, again, technical estimation for this. It's first logic model. It's not so relevant for today to talk about the methodological difficulties. But what I just want to show you is some bivariate relationships. Yes, so we see positive effects for these fathers are higher educated. They work in larger firms, and this is also significant. We see a higher union membership of these fathers. They are most likely to be employees, what I mentioned about the self-employed. They are from a higher professional class. And the age effect is also confirmed. And when we see also they are kind of more likely to be married fathers. Then final kind of more technical slide. If you do it in a multivariate model, because of the small sample size, you run in a lot of difficulties, but I can only confirm there the age effect. But again, you can see, for instance, if they're union members, you still see the positive effect. It's just not significant. And that's simply because of the sample size problem I've mentioned earlier. So what can unions now do about it? And I think that's kind of where I want to spend the next 5 minutes on just discussing what it means for the union movement. So unions are very powerful actors in the realm of occupational family policies and should yield that power. They hold a lot of negotiation power. We also should consider that from past research, we know that kind of if you have very gender segregated unions, they halted the progress of promoting more gender equality policies. At least here, that's kind of is research on pensions reforms back in the 1990s. But I think there's more research on this aspect. We also have to recognize now, since around the 2000s, late 2000s, actually we have more female union members than male members. It was used to be kind of quite equal. Now we have more female members. However, and that's kind of now, please correct me, I've just looked at the websites this morning, who is on the National Executive Council of SIPTU. It's only 27% of female board members, according to my estimate. Please, again, correct me. For the Irish Congress of Trade Unions, it's only 20%, at least in the Dublin office, and I have not counted administrative staff. So people that have, staff that have some kind of management kind of authority. So I think there is a problem of female representation at Irish union councils. But I think there are kind of four key points unions can change. The first 2 points refer to wage negotiations. So they can negotiate for more generous top-ups for paid parental leave. The technical term for Ireland is parents' leave. So as I've said, right now we have about 40% in the private sector that actually do the top-up. Make that part of your negotiations for paternity leave, but also make it part for the parents' leave. For the parents' leave, so the paid parental leave, that's now extended to 7 and soon to be extended to 9 weeks. So right now it's 7 weeks, soon to be extended to 9 weeks. That's only paid by, there's only a wage top up for this for about 20% of companies. So much less, but make it part of it. And it's not expensive for companies because the period is relatively short and it's kind of affects about 1 to 2% of the entire workforce in a given year, because over the life course of, let's say, 30 to 40 years in work, of course, that happens according to when you have the 2-child norm, it happens twice for 1 employee, okay? Of course, you can have multiple children. It's still kind of relevant in Ireland, but overall, it's kind of very short period of times where this is kind of affects actually employers. And also, you can negotiate more flexibility with employers. So there's the statutory rules around how flexible it has to be. So it has to be taken at least in periods of 1 week, but employers can offer more flexibility. And the Swedish example shows you can do it per day. And that would also allow, for instance, part-time work that you kind of have a 4-day week during this, period when your children are very small, and you just take some of your parental leave budget on 1 day in the week, and you immediately kind of reduce a lot of stress for young families. So the 2 other kind of proposals I'm going to make is, well, demand more generous statutory payments. We have for fathers who are often still have the higher income in dual couple households or dual income earner households. For them, it makes a huge difference if the higher earner, only receives a relatively low flat rate benefit. So increasing the payment of the statutory benefit increases also mayor take-up. So if we want to change caring roles, we have to make the benefit more generous. And because overall kind of statutory benefits are not very generous in Ireland, so maybe match it to the pension rate. That would be higher. Another way where a lot of reforms are going on is now around sick pay. So according to the EU directive, the paid paternity leave has to be matched to the sick pay. So once you increase the sick pay, you also will increase automatically all the related family leave pay. So that's one way to increase it as well. And you have a broader, electorate or kind of membership base that is interested by increasing the sick pay. So that is also one strategy. Increase the sick pay, you immediately increase family leave pay. Of course, that's more costly because it will affect all family leaves and all kind of employees. And then finally, that's more controversial, part of an agenda for more gender equality. It also would mean to shorten the maternity leave pay. That's longest pay in Ireland. It's 6 months. Most countries have about 3 months pay, but then they have longer shared paid parental leave. So the idea is you shorten the maternity leave, extend the paid parental leave at the same rate, at the same replacement rate, and even, you could even make it more attractive by even maybe offering even a little bit more time. So you just kind of change the eligibility and make also fathers eligible without taking away anything of the total leave for the families. So families could still decide the mother stays at home for most of the time. So you wouldn't take anything away. You just change the norm, how you would aspire that leave is shared. So these are my kind of 4 proposals. So in sum now, to sum up, what we know from the takeoff of paternity leave is it is rather at a lower government target, around 50%, and also relatively low compared to other countries with similar schemes. The social profile shows us it's kind of more middle-aged men in large international firms with top-ups, and we also saw a COVID effect that needs further investigation. And I would also think, well, the unions can do more to champion family leave policies as a recruitment campaign for female employees, but also for male employees, because we know actually at the moment there are more female trade union members. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stephan, for a very, very interesting presentation with some with some fascinating results and some very important policy conclusions there at the end, which I think give good guidance to the union movement or the labour movement in general. I suppose we can do questions through the chat, or people can put their hand up if that's an option. But I do have a few questions myself. I was quite taken, and I was expecting it really, but your final conclusion regarding maternity leave versus parental leave, and I know within the economics literature in terms of participation and gender discrimination and outcomes in terms of gender pay gap and so forth. One of the explanations given is the assumption that the female employee will take time off work, and your proposal, in a sense, attempts to counter that form of potential discrimination. Let's put it that way. Was that in your mind when you were proposing that, or was it a more just general reform in terms of actually increasing take-up? And also, in terms of your findings on age, would you like to elaborate a little bit upon why you think those age differences are there in terms of take-up? Is it related to the point of the person's career and the greater need perhaps to be seen in the office or to not be seen or to be prioritizing your work? Just some initial kind of queries for you, Stephan, to perhaps get your view on.
Okay, so I'll start with the age aspect. So of course, this is just quantitative data. So I couldn't interview fathers why they have taken leave, and I couldn't really control, for instance, are the youngers just not eligible? But I think there is kind of tentative, kind of based how the policy is designed, that the younger are most likely just not eligible. We saw really low kind of, in this kind of 20 to 25 age bracket. If you're a student and you are, form a family, then you just wouldn't be eligible. So I think that's quite a straightforward. And we know from other countries, an example I also mentioned in the paper is Iceland, that has a flat rate for students. Yeah, so simple flat rate it is, because it is an earnings related scheme in Iceland. Of course, it's more generous for those in work. And for Ireland, you could maybe think about something else. You also could think, okay, for students, we have a lower rate. I mean, if you want to be, have it strongly means tested, you can have something around that. So, but, also think of a young family. I think there's kind of could be a case to also allow for that. For the older, I only suspect it's a cultural issue of not adapting to this new, let's say, shared parenting roles. Think of an older father who might have, grown up in kind of a model where it's still the strong male breadwinner that should be responsible to earn the family wage. And but I think we need further research. What is actually going on there? Why older fathers are not taking the leave? So I suspect this is going on. It's kind of cultural change that has kind of now happened for the younger generation. They demand this, and you see that in kind of, again, even opinion polls are not really helpful here for Ireland. We don't know really what fathers think. It's more kind of anecdotal evidence from journalists, so we don't really know. For maternity parental leave, so I'm just I'm just referring to, of course, the literature from European countries where the norm is you have the relatively short maternity leave. It's 3 months in most cases. And then you have the shared parental leave. The shared parental leave usually extends in about 9 months. So the first year of childcare would be covered because one of the partners can stay at home. And we also know from the research, yes, even this 1 year period, even if it's shared, it's predominantly taken by the mother. How do you now encourage fathers to take leave and actually share it is by having what is called father quotas. So take it or leave policy. So if you don't take if the father doesn't take the leave, it's just gone. And that actually increases the take up. And right now, the current parents' leave scheme actually encourages this. It's kind of earmarked for each parent. Only each parent can take the 7 weeks at the moment. You can't transfer it. So non-transferable leave is really important to encourage also the longer leave taking. But at the moment, you don't have the choice. Even if you want to share it equally in Ireland, you could do it because maternity leave is so long. And that needs, if you really want to have more equal sharing roles, you also have to touch, I think, maternity leave at some stage.
I have a few follow-on questions, but I see we have a couple of hands raised. So first of all, Trasa, do you want to ask Stephan your question?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfectly.
I have done a great deal of research in this area at European level through the European Institute for Gender Equality, where I was working for a while. And one of the things that we highlighted in our research was that when you reduce maternity leave, those who would suffer, the want of a better word, do less well, are those who do more physical jobs in factories, in retail. And that by shortening the maternity leave in the hope that the husbands or the partners would take it up is actually detrimental to the health of the woman in the long term. And that it is maternity leave for a reason. It's physicality, it's medical leave, and it's very much around the physicality of childbirth. And in trying to, using that as a way to equalize parental responsibility, it actually is having a very negative effect for many women. Obviously not for all. If you're office-based, you're grand, and that's fine. But I think it's very important to really separate out maternity leave from parental leave. And exactly because of that, and this is supported by the World Health Organization and the research that they do as well. So 3 months is just too short. So there are other ways that you can ask people or persuade people to share parental leave, but having a maternity leave that is less than 5 months, preferably 6 months, is not recommended, not by the World Health Organization or any of the social research that has been done. So just to say that.
Yeah, I just would kind of try to challenge you a little bit on that, because and please kind of provide the literature to me, because I would be really kind of keen to read it. I think the question is, what's a benchmark? Because there are not many countries that have that long leave. So because a benchmark would be in most countries is 3 months. So I would like to know how they actually have measured shorter leave, because you have the US that has, please correct me, I think they don't have any statutory maternity leave at the moment. There are two countries, it's kind of Papua Guinea and US that don't have statutory maternity leave. Then you have some countries that only have the 2 months. And I guess there you can do sufficient kind of, estimations to know what's the difference between having 3 months and 2 months. I just wonder if we actually have, and please correct me, where we actually have sufficient evidence for this other period. And again, in most cases, when we have the shared parental leave, it would be the first half year for mothers and the second half for fathers. That's even would be kind of the most what people would do. And in most cases, it's even 1 year for the mother. So you would have hardly, even in the countries where you have very generous parental leave schemes, that actually mothers reduce it below 6 months. So even if you, but it gives people choice. So I don't think I would like to see, how that has been done, because that's the reality how leave is taken. So I think the health risks while introducing choice, I would question that, and I would like to see how it was measured.
So would you like to come back on that? Well, okay.
Oh, were you waiting for me to come back? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Would you like?
Oh, sorry. It's a World Health Organization report that was used as the basis for one of the reports that the European Institute for Gender Equality did around parental leave. And I think it was around 2017, 2018. It will be on their website. I'll just have to look a bit.
Okay, I'll also have a look, and I've noted down your name, so I might drop you an email if that's okay.
Thank you.
We can put you in contact with each other if that's okay with both of you. I also have a raised hand from Billy Barrett. Billy, would you like to ask your question or make your comment?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. I suppose I represent workers in the banking industry, and we've done pretty well in the last couple of years in relation to paternity leave and getting full pay for paternity leave across the banks in the Republic of Ireland and the North of Ireland. And similarly, parents' leave, we've been successful in getting 7 weeks fully paid leave for parents' leave as well. But I do think, I suppose, my question really relates to, we're lucky the banks they can afford it. For employers that that would claim ability to pay, would we not be better off, I suppose, and you made a point in relation to increasing the statutory pay for this amount? Would that be a better, use of our time in terms of trying to get the government to increase the statutory amount, and thus leaving us with less to look for from the employer in relation to that top of the statutory amount?
That depends on kind of course, where you're coming from. As a kind of the finance sector is male dominated, I guess. Still, is that correct?
No, we would have the majority of the retail banks. The majority of employees would be women.
Okay, so well, in that sense, I think it makes full sense to kind of have it more extended on a statutory basis. Because right now, you as a sector foot the bill, while if you do it on a statutory basis, it's kind of equally shared across the sectors. So that's the kind of the benefit of having statutory schemes, that you don't have as a sector foot the bill yourself. Okay, so if you have a female-dominated sector, you of course have to pay more on maternity benefit than a more male-dominated sector. So what you do is, by kind of having a stronger statutory basis, you kind of take out the sector inequalities. That's the basic idea behind it. So of course, if you have very sectoral unions, you have a kind of competition between the unions, what might be your preference. But that's kind of something you should take into account. At the same time, we know from the finance sector, you have one of the highest occupational benefits. I have some. I know IBEC has some done some analysis, and I know from the IBEC data that you are kind of the front runners here. It's just finance, and I think the insurance sector, but I think you might have been together in the kind of analysis they have done. The problem is retail and hospitality sector. They're very bad in providing any better leave policies. As I said, I don't have looked at other policies, but that's at least for the leave policies. These are the sectors that really have to catch up on this.
So we had said that, you know, the maternity benefits in the EU are 80 to 100% of salary. And if we were to, I suppose the question would be that if those employments, for instance, the retail sector were to, you know, if workers in the retail sector were to get 80 to 100% of their salary as a paternity benefit, more people might take it up on a statutory basis.
Well, I mean, for maternity benefit, we have 100% uptake. So for maternity benefit, it is not an issue. So it is for changing the caring roles of fathers. So if we want to change it, and there's a lot of research about the additional benefits of that fathers take leave. You know, there's a better relationship to your child. It changes not just caring roles at home. It also changes, who is doing kind of errands at home. You know, once you have this period of time out of your normal kind of 9 to 5 job, roles change in the household. So there are a lot of benefits that go beyond just, you know, bonding with your child. It also changes, you know, perception of gender equality, what are perceived roles of fathers and mothers. So, and that's kind of, at least for long period of time, when we look at countries that have done it for a long period of time, we see that gender roles change, but it is a very piecemeal process, takes a lot of time and the right signals. And of course, statutory benefits have a stronger signal to change gender roles than occupational benefits, because then it's a whole government campaign behind it. And that's kind of, if you think this is a good idea, and I think there's a lot of evidence that supports it, then statutory benefits is the way forward.
Okay, and just one final thing, if I can. You said that 46 to 61% of fathers take up paternity leave. You know, I suppose the top up to paid paternity leave is only coming in the last couple of years, as you've rightly said. I'd be interested to see in a few years' time how those figures might change, given that in those employments where it's been topped up fully, you know, I would hope that fathers are now taking it up in the banks. I would hope now that more fathers would take it up in those areas of full where full pay is being allocated. So I'd be interested in following this up in a few years' time to see where the take up given the full pay has been given in certain employments.
So just to give you kind of a little bit of, as I said, I have initial analysis on the paid parental leave called Parents' Leave in Ireland. And that's I think the take up was around 30%. So it's certainly lower than for paternity leave. And again, the figures I have from IBEC was when they've done it in 2020. So when it was just introduced, and then kind of 20% of companies offered these top ups. So compared to the 40% for parental leave. So paternity leave. So I would need a new report from IBEC, and then I can give you more details on this, what's going on. But I think, because right now the signals, I don't see the signals. Europe might be the front runner in the banking sector, but I don't see a big change yet. So I would be more hesitant on this, and I think it needs more union support, but also more statutory support to kind of change, the longer leave. Because what are 2 weeks? I mean, I would still question that 2 weeks it's like a teaser, what could be a different gender roles, but then you're not long enough in a caring role to really change perceptions and kind of what is perceived as a kind of, let's say, modern father.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no,
2 weeks doesn't seem remotely enough to me, Stefan. I have a question in the webinar chat from Paul Golder-Kelly. He's just wondering, have you looked at the proportion of claimants who have to operate at the statutory rate? Is the scheme effectively reserved, and asks, is the scheme effectively reserved for those receipt of top practice? And he also asks, how does government justify the current rate? And noting it's not exactly the social welfare rate. Do you have any comments on any of that, Stefan?
Okay, can you say it again? I think I didn't really understood the question.
Yeah, he's asking whether you have looked at the proportion of claimants who have to operate at the statutory rate, is how he writes it. And is the scheme effectively reserved for those in receipt of top-up practice? And then finally, how does the government justify the current rate? And notes it's not exactly the standard social rate from body.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so let me explain. So I can't answer your question. I don't know how many of these fathers where I have data for now have received a top-up and who not. I don't know. Okay, we don't know, at least from the publicly available data. I think that probably with administrative data, because you might maybe if there's any kind of TD here, please ask the question in Parliament in the DOL. I guess the department has some figures on that, so it would be a nice question in the DOL to ask how many have it, and then I think they should be able to provide that figure. On the current rate, so it was just modeled after maternity benefit. So they took the rate for maternity benefit. Maternity benefit in Ireland is not very generous. As I said, it's kind of about 35-40% of average wages. That's kind of record low within kind of the EU. And if you take this as a benchmark, well, then kind of you have this rather kind of little incentives for those that don't receive the top up to take the leave, because it is it's might be just at the kind of the poverty rate if you take that, but it's not kind of I think it's probably just a little bit above the kind of individual poverty rate, but it's not much more. So that's not kind of a wage replacement scheme in that sense. So you need to top up to really kind of maintain your income when we think of earnings related schemes. So, and as I said, and I want to just, hopefully I can expand that in two minutes. So since 2022, we have the EU work-life balance in operation. That states that all maternity and paternity leave have to be matched to the sick pay rate. The sick pay rate, kind of at least the sick pay rate. So once you increase this rate, then you would also automatically increase the family leave. And there had been discussions after COVID to have more earnings-related sick pay. We also have the discussion about pensions to have them more earnings-related. So once you kind of have an earnings-related scheme or kind of benefits in the system, I would think that also the family leave policies would follow up. And we all know from the research, if you want to increase the take-up of fathers, you have to make them more generous. That's how you kind of increase the take-up.
And just on that issue of take-up, I mean, you've alluded to the benefits in terms of work-life balance, in terms of caring responsibilities, and presumably the benefits to the child in the longer term from having perhaps bonded better with the father from an early stage. To what extent do you believe, given that there is such a low take-up and given that there are differences depending upon presumably the sector you're in, the type of job you do, your own demographic profile, ought it be made automatic as a requirement that you would be required to take 2 weeks off, or potentially more than those 2 weeks? Should it be simply taken away as a choice? Because obviously in some cases, presumably fathers are leaned on so as not to take it by employers. And obviously it's difficult to prove that in practice, but would making it automatic perhaps lessen that risk? And obviously it would completely transform take-up. I know it's extreme, but
I think that's extreme. I think I mean that maternity leave is mandatory for and I'm not sure now for Ireland if it what's the mandatory period, because I think in the year I'm from Germany, so I know it for Germany. So in Germany you have to take it for the kind of 3 months. That's kind of a statutory requirement, and of course it's about protecting the health of the mother. And that was all the movement, and it was driven by the ILO and the strong labor movement in the 1930s. So it was about reducing mother's death after childbirth. Okay, so that was kind of, and that's why also you're protected beforehand, before you actually give birth. It's not just after, you have the 4 weeks beforehand. So, and this is really a fundamental right that's really important for the health of the mother. So, and that's kind of, historically, it was a 3 months, and I'm happy to learn more that maybe it's not enough. Maybe it's not enough. Maybe we need even more protection here. Maybe it's a 6 months. I'm really happy to take that debate. At the same time, to have that for fathers mandatory, I don't think that's the right solution. I think it is about cultural change. How do we think? How we want that parents care for their children. And it's also, when we have same-sex couples, that's how should it be operated there. Of course, they also can take paternity and parental leave. So, and I think changing the role of the family, having a more equal family, kind of equally shared family model, kind of moving towards a dual income adult workers, changing family roles. The picture I showed you for Sweden, this is really challenging the kind of the ideal male breadwinner model from the 50s and 60s. That's what still is ingrained, and we still have to change that. And I think it is much more Ireland made a huge leap in the kind of these kind of cultural kind of modernization. But on this end, the current statutory institutions haven't really changed it in a way that goes beyond this short teaser 2 weeks. It is not really kind of, the institutions don't really suggest, oh, we now want to have a completely changed caring model. I could have provided further anecdotes. That's not research, but I think it is still a lot to do on the kind of this cultural change.
Yeah, just in relation to your to a question as well. Trassa notes that in Ireland, 8 weeks maternity leave is mandatory by law, with remaining.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, that would be kind of the ILO standard, the 8 weeks.
Yeah, and Dara O'Donnell has a question as well. He says the government last year published a green paper on pay-related benefits that would see paternity leave paid at 60% of gross weekly income, up to €450. And he asks, would Stephan expect such a system to have a positive effect on uptake?
Yes, so that would really change it fundamentally for everyone on low incomes. Because I think, again, because I have administrative data, I can't really see who is doing the take up. And I think this question on who is actually just relying on the statutory benefit is, that's where the inequality comes in. And I think right now it is how the scheme operates with the top up, it kind of has almost a Matthew effect. So it's also on a higher salary, that have the jobs that provide the extra top ups, that the higher educated, kind of the above kind of above average income middle class. That's what we're talking about. They benefit from the current arrangement of occupational top ups, and those on a lower income, they simply can't afford it, and therefore a scheme like this that would really change it.
Yeah, and just related to that, obviously that's a contributory model. I mean, is there a case for having, for moving away from a model that requires contributions at all to one that that is flat, let's say, regardless of your income. I mean, it's coming at it from a different perspective from the last question, but I suppose what I'm getting at is, would you prefer a more universal model in terms of state support, or a more periodized social security contribution type model where it's based upon replacement income? Which in your view is the direction of travel that the Irish government should pursue?
Yeah, then we come into kind of how do you can legitimize kind of more generous system without a contribution basis. So, I mean, what we know is if you, that's a tricky question. Okay, so but from the kind of going back to the legitimacy of the welfare state, Rothstein and so forth, they always argue, well, if you have a contribution-based system, everyone pays into the system. They see, I get a contribution and I get something back, not a tax-based system. So you have a contribution-based system, everyone pays into, and at some stage in their life course, they get something back. That really increases the legitimacy of the welfare state. It is less also stigmatizing then for the low-income workers, because everyone sees, well, I'm paying in, and if risk strikes, like is it unemployment or sickness or a contingency like pensions, everyone will be old. It's not a risk. We know this, it's we're going to be old and frail at some stage in our life. Then more people are willing to pay higher taxes, because that's when they know I pay the higher taxes because I will get something back. So that's where contribution-based systems are very good in increasing the legitimacy of the welfare state. So, and that's also when you can offer more generous benefits, because then it is, oh, I have contributed, I get a little bit more, and if I work and contribute, I'm in employment, then I get something back. To now have something unconditional is problematic, because then it is, oh, also those that have never contributed now get quite generous benefits. So, and what we know what's more successful is that you have a combination of both. So you have the more generous earnings related schemes, but you have also something robust on a flat rate for those that haven't contributed yet, but also face the same risk. It's not that they don't face the risk. And the example is here, Iceland, where you have this nice combination. You have the more generous earnings related scheme. And then for those who, want, even unemployed, are you, do you have to attend a job interview 3 days after your child was born? Or do you say, well, also as an unemployed person, you have right to receive your benefit, maybe even higher, but for this period of time, you don't have to offer your labor on the labor market. And I've mentioned the student example as well. So for them, a flat rate might be the appropriate way to kind of also give them time out of, the pressure to search for jobs.
Well, that seems a very reasonable answer to me. So, look, Stephan, thank you. It's been extremely informative, and obviously, we'll just check with you regarding whether the Q&A session is okay in terms of going up on the website as well, and obviously we'll circulate the webinar amongst affiliates and within the trade union movement as well, so it's available there too. So I just on behalf of everyone, on behalf of the NERI, I'd like to thank you for your research and for your responses to the questions as well, the spirit in which it was made. So thank you very much for that. Just to say as well, our next seminar is actually tomorrow, but it's in Belfast, and it'll be Laurie McFarlane presenting on transforming the economy to deliver a just transition. That's Laurie McFarlane from Future Economy Scotland. Then on the 7th of December, that is in Belfast, but it's also available remotely. And then we've got Tutu Ifan from Cardiff University, Tax Devolution and Funding Floors, what can Northern Ireland learn from Wales? And just to note as well, that our labour market conference next year will be on 16th. Certainly, Stephan, I would encourage you to get your paper in, and I'll be doing the same, and hopefully we can all debate these issues again next summer. So with that, I just one more in the questions and answers. Just make sure it's not another final question from someone. No, just someone thanking you for your thought-provoking presentation from Trasa. And again, we can put you in contact if that suits afterwards. So with that, Stephan.
Thank you very much for your comments. I've really enjoyed the conversation, and also having more hopefully more debates in the future on how to a better move towards gender equality. I think that's should be the underlying driver for these policy reforms. Thank you very much for all participants.
Absolutely, I would second that. Thank you, Stephan. Goodbye, everyone. I will see you the next time.